Alright guys, today we're going to talk about the Florida. I just got this ship yesterday actually. It was very generously gifted to me by Mustard Tiger, so appreciate that. It was very kind, very kind. Um, this is a ship that I was wanting to play, but I wasn't sure if I was going to like. Um, but after playing it, man, this is honestly, this is, I think, the most fun Tier 7 battleship in the game, I think. Um, sure, it has a lot of weaknesses, but these guns are so worth it. Despite them being nerfed massively since in testing, I believe they were dealing around 1,000 more damage. They had the HE had better fire chance, all this stuff. I think it even had a better reload in testing. I'm not sure. I didn't actually test it, but it received a lot of nerfs, but before it got released, and it's still amazing. So, yeah, I really like this ship. It's essentially I think the history on it is it's the original design of the North Carolina, the one that fit in with some treaty. I don't actually know. I'm not actually that well versed on my history, but there was a treaty on the size of the ships, I think, or the tonnage or something like that. So this was the original design. So 12 guns is a lot, and sure, you don't really overmatch stuff, but honestly, at tier 7, there's so many broadside cruisers that just pop when you shoot them. And as you saw there, even to that Odin, we can deal some pretty solid damage when they're broadside. So you just got to keep in mind that your penetration's not as good as, say, the North Carolina's 406s. So you're aiming for upper belt, superstructure sometimes. But look at this, huge hit there, 15k into that Odin. That's like, wow, you know, like that dispersion too. Like you saw how many shells I hit there. Like you're playing this ship for the guns, and they are well worth it. Well worth it. I really like it. I've always liked 12-gun battleships. I don't really know why. I think I just like how many shells are firing at once. So I would honestly say this thing has better dispersion than like Montana with dispersion module even. Like it's actually kind of insane. So if you have good aim, this is a really good ship for you. So I should probably talk about the weaknesses since I've raved about the guns here for a little bit. The armor. I mean, it's a North Carolina looking hull, but it's essentially old North Carolina, in that your citadel is well above the water. So North Carolina got a buff where its citadel was moved to just at the waterline. This one, well above the water. You can see those little notches on the side of the ship. All the way along, it's about that high out of the water. So if you give broadside, you get punished, which is good design. I like this. I wish more ships were designed like this, where you give broadside, you get punished. Unfortunately, if you angle, you can also get punished in this ship. Not from New Mexico's, but anything with 380mm guns and above, they're going to overmatch your bow, your stern, and your upper belt armor. The deck armor is actually 38mm, just like North Carolina. So that's actually really good for this tier. You can shatter a lot of HE, so if you're at long range, you're actually pretty tanky, especially if you angle directly away from battleships at long range. Their shells are going to be plunging down, and if they hit you on the deck, they'll just bounce. So you're actually pretty tanky at long range. It's just at close range when people can reliably hit your upper belt or your bow or your stern. That's when you start to be a little bit weaker. So keep that in mind. Pushing is not really what this ship is good at. HE can pen you a lot of places, obviously. The other weakness is it only gets 4 heals maximum. So if you take Superintendent, you're only getting to 4, not 5. So some of the time, that actually impacts the game. As you can see here, we're pretty low on health, 12k. Actually, speaking of health, I think this ship had 60,000 health, 61,000 health in testing. And now it's down to 51,000. So the testing version of this ship must have been insane to play. As you can see, 8,000 damage still to a to the superstructure of that New Mexico. You saw that. Like, the dispersion's just incredible. So if you've got aim, it's great. You can take range mod like I am in this game and spotter plane. Your maximum range is like 25 kilometers, and you can hit cruisers really hard out at those ranges. The shell velocity apparently also got nerfed, if people in Twitch chat are anything to go by. So it's been nerfed, and it's still this good. I think if you played it before, if you were testing it, maybe you might not want to get it since it's been nerfed this hard. But if you never played it in testing, I think this ship is great fun. Other thing I should talk about, it has North Carolina, pretty much exactly maneuverability. So it feels really nice to play. You've got nice speed, especially compared to New Mexico, Colorado, California. With this ship released, I don't think there's any reason to buy a California. Literally one patch later from the California's release, and it gets power crept. It's like, okay, interesting design wargaming. So, yeah, I like this ship. I like this ship a lot. I think that it's potentially a difficult battleship to play. As you can see, I'm kind of staying at long range. I'm trying not to acquire the attention of that Colorado because he can overmatch me. So that's why I'm trying to just focus the New Mexico. As you can see, I'm checking his guns. I'm always aware of where the overmatch is. And when people with overmatch ability, so that's 380 or 406 kind of guns, shoot at me, I'm always trying to dodge them. I'm not trying to tank those shells, I'm trying to dodge those shells. Just like a cruiser would. And so, because you have North Carolina speed and maneuverability, it's actually not too bad to dodge shells at these 15-kilometer ranges. You can slow down and turn in or turn out, slow down, speed up. I'm actually running the propulsion module so that I can speed up faster from a stop to dodge more shells. I like it. Something I should also mention with this ship is its AA is actually really good. You don't necessarily have the best base values, but you get defensive fire, and defensive fire is nice. As you can see, we're actually up against a tier 8 carrier, and he hasn't really focused us yet, but now he's starting to focus us, and sure, it's a Kaga, so we're probably going to get a lot of planes still, but it's still a tier 8 carrier, a tier higher than us. Normally, AA's only somewhat effective against the carriers that are lower tier than you, but this is actually pretty good. As you can see, we shot 6 down already, and the AA consumable lasts a pretty long time too, actually. I'm actually running the AA module, the special module that increases the duration of the defensive AA consumable and reduces the reload time. So the nice thing about that is once you've killed all the planes, you will more than likely have defensive fire up for the next time that next time the CV comes to strike, because as you saw, it was like around 1 minute and 8 seconds was the cooldown, so CV is most likely not going to get to you in 1 minute and 8 seconds, so you pretty much always have defensive AA available. And I mean, if he doesn't get the memo after five times coming to strike you and you pop defensive fire to like leave you alone, he's probably going to be out a lot of planes. Which is really nice, honestly. I wish all ships got a defensive AA consumable, even if they made the reload time longer on certain ships. It's just nice to be able to have the option of pumping out reliable damage. I mean, a CV is still going to get his strike off, right? Like, here we pop defensive fire, we do our sector reinforcement. You can see the damage numbers are pretty good, but CVs are guaranteed to get their strike off. But it'd just be nice to be able to have this defensive fire that can somewhat reliably shoot down planes on all ships. And there you go, AA Defense Expert, so it's good. It's good AA. And you're never facing tier 10s, so tier 8 is the worst you're going to face, so pretty good. And actually I've faced a couple like Rangers and like tier 6 CVs, and it's pretty hilarious. You can actually nuke their planes pretty good. They still get drops off, but They almost don't, and if they get unlucky, they really won't get a drop off if they get really unlucky and your flak hits them. And here, just kind of the last little bit of damage. Into carriers, I mean, it's going to be massive damage. I only hit 3 there somehow, but as you can see, we don't actually have defensive A up for this one, but that's because he's 12 kilometers away. Normally carriers are around 20 kilometers away, double the distance. And as you see, we have a 30-second reload yet to wait on our defensive fire. So I can pretty confidently say you're mostly going to have defensive fire up, which makes your A really good. So yeah, I would recommend, if you're looking for a fun battleship to play at tier 7, and you're okay with constantly having to worry about overmatch, I can confidently say this is a great battleship to pick up. It is, I believe, it's $50 Canadian in the store, which is probably somewhere in $35 to $39 US. And for that money, I'd say it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. The one thing I will say, you don't want to go for this ship in the US event where you get tokens and that kind of thing. Even if you grind out all of your tokens that you can possibly get with all the missions, you still need to spend around 21,000 doubloons just to be guaranteed this Florida, to get enough tokens to buy all the packs to get up to the Florida, which is kind of insane. When you consider, I don't know the exact number on 21,000 doubloons, but I'm guessing that's around $100. So literally double. It does give you a chance at a couple chances at getting the Minnesota as well, which is a silver tech tree ship. So I don't know why you would spend all that money just to get a tech tree ship a little bit faster. So yeah, I would recommend just buy it in the shop if you want it. Don't do the RNG gambling thing that Wargaming has in the armory right now. Don't do it. Don't feed that practice, man. It's really not good. Not good for the game at all. But this ship is good. So yeah, I would recommend you get it. I think this game is not quite as much damage. Obviously, you're not going to get 150,000 damage in a tier 7 battleship every game. This one's a little bit less. I think I get around 120 in this one. But my average is over 100, and I've played it, I think, close to 10 games, maybe a couple less. I played it a lot yesterday, and I enjoyed it. So the problem in this one, I think I just end up not killing these Nürnbergs, and I don't know how I didn't get killing them, but at long range there, it's pretty solid at long range, honestly. This King George slows down and turns in. But yeah, if you're wondering what crosshair I'm using, it really helps with long range shots. It's the dynamic crosshair in game plus the Smart Horizon mod in the Aslan's mod pack. And essentially what it does is it allows you to aim at the number along the aiming reticle there. Assuming the ship's going 30 knots, it's essentially 1-to-1 travel time to those numbers if the ship is going 30 knots. So say this Nuremberg, or say this, yeah, we'll use the Nuremberg. I think I'm shooting at him next. If this Nuremberg was traveling 30 knots with this, and he was going in a straight line completely parallel to us, like 90 degrees, it would be exactly the timer on the lead time is what you would aim at. So if it's, 4 seconds, you would put it right at the 4 second, or the 4 little line. Here, I have no idea how that Nuremberg lives. So it's still a battleship. But this lead timer is really nice for at long ranges. So the other thing, you'll see my minimap is a little bit big. This is something a little more recent that I've been doing, is messing around with a bigger minimap, because it helps aim a lot, I find. Because the only accurate aiming reticle is the little dot on the minimap. Again, I have no idea. 7 overpans on the Königsberg, like really? Sinop gets citadels though, so Russian bias confirmed, right? The minimap, you can make it pretty big. I can actually make it any size I want to if I edit the right text file in the games. So that's pretty funny. But that little dot you see on the minimap of where my shells are aimed, that's the only accurate reticle to go by. There's a lot of auto-aim in this game when you're locked onto a target, so if you're aiming too short from a ship, so your aim is too low, the game tries to compensate that by aiming up closer to the ship. If you're aiming too high, the game tries to compensate that by aiming a little lower. So that's great when they're not maneuvering, but as soon as a ship starts to turn, all of a sudden, that compensation up or down means your shells are just going to miss, high or low, depending on the turn, right? If somebody's turning out, you aim higher. But if you go based on the center aiming reticle, it actually isn't correct because the auto aim makes it go lower. So, or lower than where you are exactly aiming with your center screen reticle. So you actually have to go way higher than what you're thinking to actually shoot where you want to shoot. Which is a little sad for me to think that your aiming reticle isn't actually accurate. So I'm actually aiming using the circle on the minimap that's moving around there, as you can see in front of this York. I expected him to turn out here. He didn't, so we aimed too high. But it's sad, honestly, that we can't at least have an option to turn off this auto-aim so that our aiming reticle is accurate. Obviously, you could just not lock onto targets, but then you're not getting the dispersion improvement for locking onto a target. So I would like to see an option where Wargaming lets us turn off this auto-aim. Yeah, it's pretty sad for me, because I would love to be able to aim with the center of my screen, right? But you can't anymore, so that's why I have this big minimap. So it's kind of unfortunate, but that's the game and how it is. At least there's a way to know where your shells are gonna go. That's nice, at least. At least it's not totally RNG based, or not RNG based, but unknown on how much the auto aim is gonna affect you. So here, I think, actually, I don't think we clap this York. I think it's, yeah, he turns in. Still 9k damage though. That's pretty solid. You can see the groupings on these shells, man. It's kind of disgusting how good this dispersion is on 12 guns at tier 7. As you can see, we got a nice convoy going on here, giving me throwbacks to the beginning of the game when everybody played in formation sailing and everybody was broadside, and oh man, good times. Now everybody's kiting away at the back of the map, angled all the time, so... But it's fun to do this. Looks cool too in game. So the way I'd play this ship is, if you've ever played North Carolina, I would play it similar to that ship, just probably a little bit farther back, honestly. Overmatch sucks, and obviously, I mean, I got lucky there giving broadside to a Synop, but overmatch is really kind of crappy to deal with. But yeah. We actually get up over 100k somehow yet, so I think we start clapping here, finally. I was getting a little discouraged at this point, but yep, these guns do a lot of damage. Yeah, that's 10 hits out of 12. I mean, it's a broadside New Mexico, so it's a pretty big target, but still, to hit 10 out of 12 shells is pretty rare, I think, for a battleship with 12 guns. Cruisers are happy. 12-gun cruisers are happy to hit 10 out of 12 shells. So, I think you shouldn't really be using HE with this ship unless you absolutely have to shoot at a angled battleship. You should always be trying to shoot at something that's broadside. The HE doesn't really have a high alpha damage, and its base fire chance I think is 22%, so that combined with the over 30-second reload means you're not really good at lighting fires or anything. You got to get pretty lucky. The shell groupings do make up for it, but realistically you're not going to be an HE spammer, which is good. I think that's good game design. I think this ship is how I would love to have the whole game designed, where you go broadside, you're more than likely going to get slapped. It's not rewarding you for shooting HE, it's rewarding you for positioning well and shooting at broadsides. I think that is great game design, and the problem now, though, is this ship has all those weaknesses and strengths associated with it, and then there's some ships in the game that don't have to deal with those weaknesses. So that's kind of the problem now, is if it were up to me, a lot of ships would be getting nerfed. There'd be a lot of changes to this game to be more like this ship, more like the North Carolina. And in fact, yeah, I like this game when I'm playing Florida. I really had a lot of fun playing Florida. In fact, I usually average around 2 hours, I think, streaming, because I get frustrated by this game. And while playing this ship, not exclusively, but mainly playing this ship yesterday on stream, I think I managed a 3.5 hour stream. So yeah, I had fun. It felt rewarding to play this ship, and it felt like my mistakes were also being punished reasonably. Like, I'm not getting, fire spam from 20 kilometers at tier 7, right? Like, that's why I think I need to not play tier 10. All the HE spam from max range is just so boring, and I find it not very fun to play against. So I think I need to play these mid tiers more, and I think Florida is going to be the ship of choice for me, at least at tier 7. Quick note before we're done with this game, I have played it with a secondary build, and now you might be thinking, a secondary build on a ship that gets overmatched, why on earth would you do that? And that's an excellent question. It's because I'm not the brightest person, and I like to force secondary builds all the time. So it actually kind of works. I haven't had a good game with it where I've hit a lot of secondaries, but consider that the Gneisenau has 8-kilometer secondaries. Scharnhorst as well, 8-kilometer secondaries. Same tier Battleship. This ship gets 7.6-kilometer secondaries. Only 0.4 kilometers difference. So it's actually not the dumbest thing ever in terms of its relative competition. The problem is those ships actually have armor. So being up close like that isn't great. But what I have found is running just AFT and manual secondaries is really good when fighting destroyers. Because while your main guns can do that, they only reload every 30 seconds or so. And, well, DDs can have a lot of freedom if you're only reloading every 30 seconds to apply pressure to them. So, part of me thinks the secondary build's not bad just because it keeps you a little bit safer from destroyers. Once the proposed captain build stuff comes through, where secondary builds get worse because their dispersion gets worse, they're going to get cheaper, though, to get. So I think you're going to see, at least me, we might see some other people, too, start running more secondary builds on ships that you wouldn't necessarily think to run a secondary build on, just simply to apply that little bit of pressure, or extra pressure, to close-range destroyers. Ever since Battleship AP got nerfed, and HE is pretty anemic against destroyers because there's so many modules that will just soak up all the HE damage or soak up all the HE, so your HE shell actually doesn't deal damage to the ship, it just breaks a module. So that's why shooting HE at a destroyer from a battleship isn't always the best idea. It can be okay if you hit the lower part of the hull where it's guaranteed to do damage, but if your shells go a little bit high, you're going to hit the torp tubes, you're going to hit the turrets, you're going to hit AA mounts, you're going to hit all these different things scattered throughout the deck, and you're not actually going to deal damage to the ship, you're just going to damage those modules. And so I think that's kind of sad that the AP is still more consistent against little destroyers, even though it only overpens now, than high explosive ammo, simply because module damage is so weird in this game. So I would love to have AP pens back, even if they're at close range, say. You know, if you limit it to like 10 kilometers, right? So you're not going to get slapped by in a destroyer by a battleship outside 10 kilometers, let's say. But inside 10 kilometers, where a ship might be coming to YOLO you, or they just sit within 10 kilometers and spam you with HE, I think it'd be interesting to be able to AP pen them. Because right now it feels like destroyers kind of have free reign. Aside from aircraft carriers, obviously. Obviously. Aircraft carriers are broken. I understand this. But yeah, that's Florida. I like this ship, man.